Yo, what is up you guys, and welcome back into the latest chapter of One Piece. My name is Sai, and today we're here to break down and just talk a little bit about the latest chapter of One Piece. So with that being said, let's just hop into it. So we start off the chapter with another reader requested cover page. When are we going to get a canon plotline? Who knows, but then again, we got a banger one this week because we have Captain Kuro reading a book to giant cats. Maybe it's because I have a lot of cats at home, but I really liked this week's cover page, and I also do wonder when Captain Kuro is going to pop back into the manga, because last we saw him, he was still a pirate. I still feel like we'll get an update on Captain Kuro eventually, along with the rest of the East Blue villains. But yeah, what do you guys think about Captain Kuro? Do you think he'll ever make a canon reappearance? Or no, do you think he's just too outscaled and he wouldn't really matter with Luffy being where he is today? Alright, so we hop straight into the chapter after that, and we see that Luffy is opening the chapter in a very Luffy-like fashion. I really enjoyed the conversation, not because anything super deep happened, but mainly because this is Luffy's first interaction with the Gorosei. Before this chapter, Luffy probably didn't even know who the Gorosei were. To him, they're just 5 old guys in a room. But now, with chapter 1090, they're finally getting closer and closer to our realm. So much so that Luffy can declare to them that he's going to be king of the pirates. So after Luffy's declaration, he says, yo, we are allied with Dr. Vegapunk. If any of you guys care about York's life, then you gotta back off a little bit. We got to leave this island. Kizaru and Saturn pretty much have a good gist of what's going on, so they're not super shocked. But you know who is super shocked alongside the Marine fodder? Big News Morgans, Wapol, and Vivi. I feel like Big News Morgans listening in on this conversation will have some sort of payoff later on. And there's a couple of options with this. Maybe he prints another newspaper saying that Luffy has allied with Dr. Vegapunk. On the crazy end of things, we can even make theories saying that maybe Big News Morgans will meet up with Luffy on Egghead Island, because you gotta remember, Labo phase of Egghead Island is floating above the clouds. Big News Morgans flies his airship along the clouds, so maybe they can meet up somewhere along the way, and Big News Morgans could be how they escape this island. But of course, that is just me throwing out some conspiracy theories. But yeah, I would love to hear what you guys have to say. What kind of role do you think Big News Morgans will play here? So after the conversation ends, Saint Saturn says there are 3 things they must protect here on Egghead Island. They gotta save York, Punk Records, and the Mother Flame facility. But he also says that the only one that they really need out of all of them is York. Because let's be real, if Punk Records is destroyed, York has some of that information still, and maybe she could even rebuild Punk Records. And the same goes for the Mother Flame. Even if they lose the Mother Flame here, York could technically rebuild it. Saturn saying this removes a lot of the restraints that they set on themselves in the previous chapters, because leading into Egghead, they were talking about how valuable Egghead Island is. It has crazy technology. It has military weapons that they could use any other day. So they didn't want to destroy everything. But it looks like Saint Saturn is saying that in the worst case scenario, really, as long as they have York, they are winning. Doberman says, hey, yo, Rob Lucci is there. The Cypher Pole agents are there. We can't just leave them, right? We gotta save them too. They are also a priority. Saint Saturn then reels back what he was trying to say, and he said, hey, no, that is only the worst case scenario. But let's be real. Humans are insects. Even if they lose their numbers, they will reproduce again. Pretty much saying that Rob Lucci and the Cypher Pole agents in this chapter are all expendable. Don't forget that. You know, obviously we want to save everybody, but if we lose them, no hard feelings. Doberman, even though he says he understands, does look a little bit unsettled by what good man Saint J. Garcia says here. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think eventually the Marines will just get fed up with how the world government is running things. Cutting back over to our group though, we see that York is crying bloody murder. She says, hey, I'm gonna tell the Gorosei. The Gorosei are gonna destroy Egghead Island just like Ohara. Nami ends up hitting her in the head with a climate act, And my favorite part about this whole interaction is that Robin is in the background the entire time, and she doesn't really say anything. She just kind of smiles and moves on, which I think is a lot of growth for Robin, right? Because beforehand, you bring up Ohara, you're bringing up a lot of bad memories. But Ohara is a thing of the past. She's with strong people now who can protect her, and Robin no longer fears the Buster Call like she did pre-time skip. Maybe I'm looking too deep into things, but Robin's smile here speaks 1,000 words. Oh yeah, Robin though, just like the rest of the Straw Hats and people in close vicinity, she is a little bit bruised and battered, which is pretty much saying that even though the Seraphim battle was off-screened, it wasn't exactly an easy fight. They weren't exactly neg-diffing the Seraphim, which I like, right? We skip past the fight, we just put a couple of band-aids on him and we call it a day. The one character though, sorry, I got kind of close there. The one character though, that for some reason did not make it out of this battle a-okay is Kaku. You know, I make excuses for Rat Lucci and Kaku, Cypher. I make excuses for all these guys every single day. And let me tell you, Kaku, lying on his back, covered in bandages, admitting that he got injured fighting just 2 Seraphim, right? Of course, 2 Seraphim, very powerful, but 2 Seraphim? Luffy, Zoro, Lucci, they're okay, they're standing, they're eating, they're chilling. Kaku being on his back is a major L to the Cypher Pole fans out there. And, you know, heavy hearts go out, we hate to see it, and it's hard to defend, actually. Kaku is an awakened Zoan. Awakened Zoans have crazy regenerative powers, and Kaku's still lying on his back. We hate to see it, but you know what? We do get a really wholesome moment between him and Rob Lucci, where Rob Lucci says, hey, I get how you feel. Just relax. No worries, my man. I like that. You know, Rob Lucci showing the kinship to his fellow CP0 agent. Also, one big thing we do get in this spread here is that we actually see Kaku, Robin, Lilith, Atlas, and even Stussy, which is awesome because last chapter we were all wondering where they were. Turns out that they were actually in this room the entire time. Oda just didn't have enough space to draw them in. We are missing Shaka and Pythagoras from this double page spread though, but that is only because they've been confirmed to be destroyed. If you are a Shaka or Pythagoras fan, I wouldn't fret too hard though, because with Vegapunk being the scientist that he is, the great mind that he is, I feel like he could simply rebuild them once he gets his bearings whenever he leaves this island. If he built them once, he can probably build them again. To me though, Edison being confirmed to be alive is the most surprising thing here. Mainly because last we saw him, S-Shark beat him down so bad, he had X's for eyes. So it really makes me wonder if Oda saved him for a special reason. Because going back to when we first saw him, he did say that he had an idea for a brand new invention, so maybe that invention will come into play somehow? I have no clue. While everyone is getting treated by Chopper though, Rob Lucci is in the background giving information to the Gorosei, which isn't super surprising since he still is the bad guy we all know and love. But what I found interesting about this is that he didn't tell Kaku what he was doing. It does make me wonder if Kaku maybe switched sides to the Straw Hats and Lucci just can't trust him anymore, or if Lucci just wants to play as secretly as possible since all of the Straw Hats are still in the room. Which I just gotta say, it's kind of crazy that nobody notices that Lucci is having a full-blown conversation on the phone when he's actually nearby everybody else, but hey, anime logic, totally fine by me. We cut down to the basement laboratory and we see that the Cypher Pole agents that York captured have now been freed, and not just that, but they have finally been given food after 3 whole months. Or maybe just a couple of weeks, depending on which Cypher Pole agency you come from. But yes, Luffy has given them food. And I really like this because I know some people are saying that, oh, we didn't have to feed them, they're bad guys. But you have to remember, going back to the ending of Wano where Luffy beat Kaido, Kaido asked Luffy what kind of world Luffy wanted to create. And Luffy straight up said he wanted to create a world where everyone can eat as much as they want. And judging from this panel, Luffy even includes his enemies in there. But yes, Luffy fed the Cypher Pole agents and they say that they owe their lives to the Straw Hat crew. Mihawk said that Luffy's #1 power is to create allies out of those around him. And he was able to do that with these random Cypher Pole fodder. We cut over to the other side of the Cypher Pole room and we see that the Seraphim are all there and they're all trapped within Vegapunk's bubbles. These are the same bubbles that Lilith's gun shot out, and they're the same bubbles that the Mark III pacifistas have. And they're perfect when it comes to capturing Devil Fruit users like the Seraphim. The best way to probably break these bubbles is to slice it with a sword or a knife. And that is most likely why S-Hawk, the Mihawk Seraphim, does not have his replica of Yoru in the bubble. You can actually see it sitting right outside. The Hancock Seraphim says, hey, we don't have any orders to attack you guys, so don't worry about it. Frankie responds and says, yeah, despite that though, thank you so much for undoing my petrification. Vegapunk says, yo, that's weird. I never gave her that order. And that is when we get a flashback of Luffy showing us again that he is able to make allies of just about anyone because he was able to bypass York's command ship and have the S-Snake Seraphim undo the petrification on Frankie and Usopp. This is actually so impressive that Dr. Vegapunk starts taking notes about it. He's like, wait, Luffy can do that? I need to write that down. You're telling me that the Boa Hancock DNA is so powerful that she still listens to Luffy no matter what? Absolutely insane, and it does beg the big question that I want to propose to you guys. Do you think Luffy ordering S-Snake can bypass Vegapunk and even the Gorosei? Because I feel like he just might be able to. If Saint Saturn, who holds the highest authority over the Seraphim, comes into this room, I do wonder if she'll listen to him or Luffy. Also, now that we know that the DNA is that influential on the personalities of the Seraphim, I do wonder if S-Hawk saying, hey, how dare they lock us in these bubbles, has anything to do with Mihawk when he was younger. But I do wonder if this might be a hint towards Mihawk's backstory in some weird or maybe vague way. So moving on, the only thing keeping the Vegapunks and the Straw Hats on the Labo phase of Egghead Island is the security dome. But we can't bypass it because we learned that York actually put a password on it. And I'm gonna take my fat prediction right here. I think this password is going to be super simple. It's going to be something absolutely ridiculous. And I just think it might be meat. York, even in this chapter, after saying she put a password on the computer, says that she's starting to get hungry. I'm telling y'all, it's going to be something super simple. And I do think that having a super simple password is a great way to catch a genius off guard. With how simple this password might be, I wouldn't be surprised if Luffy could be able to guess what it is. So looking a little bit ahead, Vegapunk and Nami start planning as to what they will do once they leave Egghead Island. Nami says that they haven't stayed on Egghead Island long enough for the log post to reset, so their best option is to just go with the next destination that they would have gone to if it wasn't Egghead Island. And that place just so happens to be Elbaf. I think what's really cool about this is that back in chapter 1056, this is actually where Luffy wanted to go. He wanted to go the same place that Kid did, but Luffy ended up getting the short end of the stick, so to say, so that is how he ended up here on Egghead Island. So yes, looks like Luffy gets what he wants at the end of the day. We see that Luffy and Usopp are pretty excited about this. They actually start cheering, and what I love most about the panel is that in the background, we can even see Robin, who has a really nice expression in regards to this information. And hey, I'm just gonna say it right here, but I'm super excited to have Robin and Saul finally reunite. Usopp and Luffy are so hyped about Elbaf that they actually start singing a song about it. Which I do wonder, like, I sound crazy when I say this, but I do wonder if it's some sort of foreshadowing, because now that we know that Sun God Nika and his heartbeat has its own rhythm, it's like you know, we gotta look at music a little bit differently. Maybe Elbaf has some hidden songs about Sun God Nika that will be very prevalent when it comes to the Void Century and or Luffy's powers. Also, shoutouts to Rob Lucci, who still has a massive grudge against Stussy as he is staring at her in the background. Going on a little bit, we learn about how the Straw Hats plan to leave Egghead Island. And, you know, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but 9 out of 10, whenever the Straw Hats make a plan, it usually doesn't work out that way. But hey, I like the plan simply because Frankie gets his praise from Vegapunk. Vegapunk is impressed that the Thousand Sunny can not only fly in the air using the Kude Burst, but it also runs on cola. Frankie came into this arc adoring everything Vegapunk is and has created. And now that same guy is turned around and is saying, yo, like that's pretty impressive. So it does hype me up to see what Frankie and Vegapunk can come together and create in the future. So we cut over and we see that Frankie, Lilith, Bonney, and Luffy are all racing to the shoreline. And what I found interesting about this whole situation is that they actually start hyping up Sanji a little bit, right? Bonney says, hey, I'm hungry. Luffy says, yo, we got a great chef. And Bonney says, yep, not only is he a great chef, but he's also a really strong fighter. I like Sanji as much as the next guy. He's one of my favorite Straw Hats, but reading this kind of made it feel like fan fiction because they don't do this often, right? It's funny because I look at this and I'm like, wait, is this a Bonney for Nakama moment or is this a Bonney and Sanji thing? I'm not really too sure yet, but yeah, they hype up Sanji a little bit and Luffy says, hey, you're in a great mood. What happened? And Bonney admits that she's been in a really great mood ever since she gave up the killing urge to kill Vegapunk. Which is great because that means that whatever Bonney saw in Kuma's memories pretty much says that Vegapunk is a good guy through and through. Even though Vegapunk is the one that transformed her dad into a robot, she forgives him for everything. Hey you guys, it's me, Sai from the future, or the side that's editing this video. While I was editing, I realized that a really popular theory about Bonney and why she might have such a weird fascination with Sanji, and maybe even the reason why she forgave Vegapunk, might just be that this is actually Katarina Devon. Personally, I'm not super on board with that theory, but I do see why people have latched onto this, and most notably, it's because of the Sanji portion. So, when we think of the Blackbeard Pirates and why they might want Sanji, it could be because of Pudding. They kidnap Pudding and maybe she won't use her powers until Sanji's with her. And if there's anybody that knows how great of a cook Sanji is, it's Pudding. And not just that, but she also knows how strong he is too. So maybe this is Katarina Devon just regurgitating what she heard from Pudding. Another thing that's kind of interesting about this is that out of the entirety of the group, Bonney was the only person who was notably by herself. You know, Vegapunk had York, we had all of the satellites grouped together with the Straw Hats, even Robin was with Chopper. The only person that was alone would have been Bonney. So if there was anybody to kidnap, beat up, and take over, it would be her. And hey, Bonney has actually lost to the Blackbeard Pirates before, and they even chained her up at one point, so her being captured by Catarina Devon and Lafitte isn't super far-fetched. But yeah, what do you guys think about this theory? Do you agree that Bonney is actually Katarina Devon? Or no, do you think she did just have a major character change in this slight time skip? Oh yeah, the reason why I don't completely believe the Katarina Devon is Bonney theory just yet is simply because of what Luffy says to her. So Bonney says, I'll admit I feel better now that I gave up on killing Vegapunk, and then Luffy says, good, we won't be annoyed by your crying anymore like last night. So it kind of implies that Bonney did go through the memories and then came there and cried for like a solid couple of hours. So that's kind of why I don't believe this just yet, but I do like the idea though. I feel like eventually the Blackbeard Pirates location will have to be known to us, right? They can't just show us Blackbeard Pirate ships and then never touch on it ever again. Oda isn't that cruel. Eventually, they will show up. We just don't know how yet. Also, since I am here from the future and I have your attention for a second, I do want to touch on one more thing that I didn't get a chance to talk about in the original video. And what I want to talk about are the other 3 Seraphim that are not present on Egghead Island, like Doflamingo, Crocodile, and Gecko Moria. I feel like this chapter pretty much solidifies the reasoning as to why Vegapunk doesn't have them here. And that's probably just because their personalities are so strong and more or less evil that he doesn't want to have to deal with them, right? Boa Hancock already overruled Vegapunk's orders because Luffy asked her to. Now imagine Crocodile, Doflamingo, and Gecko Moria. They seem like the type of dudes who wouldn't really take orders from anybody. So it just makes sense that Vegapunk would pawn them off. So we cut over to our favorite characters, Borsalino and Saint Saturn. The Marines are awesome, and we see... and we see that Borsalino is still very cocky in this whole situation. He says, yo, even though Mugiwara acts like he's in control, he's still a cornered rat. He can't go anywhere. Saint Saturn ends up theory crafting a little bit and says that, hey, that security dome, you can get past that, right? You're a man made out of light. You're a Logia. Kizaru says, yeah, I probably could. But the guy who's protecting the labo phase, the guy that's protecting the dome, just so happens to be a good friend of mine. Saturn then proposes a preposterous idea. He says, yo, ignore him. Sentomaru, he's nothing. Forget about him. Kizaru says, I cannot ignore a man determined to fight for his duty. I will not betray my ideals. Bruh, Kizaru did not say this last chapter. Last chapter, Kizaru said he was a corporate slave. He's just doing his job. He's a cog in the machine. But here he is saying, yo, no, that's my friend over there, and I'm gonna do what I believe in. And also, just throwing it back, Kizaru's justice is unclear justice. We're not meant to really know what he's thinking or how he will act. But regardless though, all of this and him wanting to fight Sentomaru is based on logic. Because he says that if we go with that route, if we just rush up to the labo phase, Sentomaru will use the Sea Beast and he'll use the Mark IIIs to destroy a lot of Navy ships, and that's just going to be a net negative. Saint Saturn ends up agreeing, and he's like, yo, this is complicated, man. Like, Luffy up there, Vegapunk, York, Power Plant. Saint Saturn's a little bit stressed out. But Kizaru says, no worries, boss. No worries, because Rob Lucci handed us the plans. He gave us the blueprints of this place, which I just gotta say, little bit of a Rob Lucci W. Cut over to the Vice Admirals, who are all gearing up to assault Egghead Island. And their main priority, at least to them, is to save the captured Cypher Pole members, which, like I said, kind of goes back to that disconnect between what Doberman wants and what Saint Saturn wants. The Marines just want to save their own people. They're not even talking about York. They're not even talking about Vegapunk or the Straw Hats. They just want to save their fellow Marines and world government operatives. Once they reach those captured Cypher Pole members, I wonder what's going to happen. Because those Cypher Pole members said that they owe the Straw Hats their lives. They are thankful to them. So will we get a Dressrosa type situation where the Cypher Pole agents are saying, hey, Straw Hats, we're going to get you, but they don't really do anything to stop them? I'm really curious. While they're getting ready to attack Egghead Island though, Kizaru finally makes his move. The man travels at the speed of light using his Yata no Kagami technique. He zip zap, bounce, and boings off the walls of Egghead Island, and that is when Sentomaru says, Uncle Kizaru. And then they both clash with each other, with Sentomaru declaring himself the man who has the strongest defense in the world. What an insane and emotional clash. And I do wonder what's gonna happen, right? Like, is Kizaru really gonna put down Sentomaru? Like, let's be real here. They're the only people on this phase of Egghead Island. The researchers are gone, the Straw Hats and Vegapunks are up above in the clouds. It's only Sentomaru and Kizaru. Will this really be a fight to the death? I'm not too sure. I feel like we will get some heavy-hearted words spouted next chapter, since it's just man on man. If they do end up seriously clashing though, and Kizaru doesn't care about Sentomaru, things are not gonna look too good for Luffy and the crew next chapter. Because we cut back up to the labo phase, and Luffy says, yo, where's that light coming from? Someone very powerful is coming. Admiral fans assemble. Because let me tell you, Green Bull made us look really bad, right? Wano arc, Green Bull showed up, Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, Jinbei, they were sitting on a cliff eating meat. This time around, Kizaru's showing up and Luffy's like, yo, this guy's powerful. Luffy's not exactly sweating, but Luffy doesn't look like he's gonna easily handle this. Kizaru might be a high diff fight, and I'm super excited to see what's happening. And it does look like Kizaru is showing up, because in those last 2 panels, you kind of see the light shining up on the Labo phase. And if you look closely at the panel of Luffy, you can see like these weird bubbles that looks like Kizaru's light. So yeah, maybe he did just bypass the security dome like he told Saint Saturn that he probably could. And I'm really excited to see how this fight pans out, because if Kizaru does make it up to the Labo phase, it looks like Luffy's going to be the first person he's going to have to fight. What I'm really hoping to see from this fight is what an awakened Logia looks like. We have not seen a singular Logia awakening in this entire series, and if anybody can do it, it's gotta be the 3 OG admirals. And now, on to the comments from the previous video. The first one we have says, I have a feeling that Lucci is giving false information. I personally don't think this is happening, but I really like this idea because it just goes to show how interesting of a position Lucci and Kaku are in. Because right now, Lucci is unhandcuffed, hanging out with the Straw Hats. But on the opposite end, he could also align himself with the Marines and the world government and help take down Luffy when Kizaru shows up. Lucci is literally in the middle of everyone right now, and I don't know how he's gonna play out quite yet. I know last video I said that maybe he'll attack some of the weaker Straw Hats, but I actually forgot about the promise he made to Luffy, where Luffy said, hey, you know, just because you can't beat me, you're not gonna go around attacking everybody else yet, right? And then Lucci accepted that. He's like, yo, like, what do you mean I can't beat you? Of course I'm gonna take you down first, Straw Hat. So there is like a grudge there. So maybe Lucci sticks around just so we can fight Luffy some more, or maybe he goes back to the Marines and then he helps him take down Luffy. Like, we don't really know. Lucci and Kaku are a wild card. Yes, they can't take down the Straw Hats together by themselves, but we can't undersell how important they might be. But also, I'm really biased because Lucci is my favorite character. So, on to the next comment. They say the situation with Kizaru and Sentomaru is like Aokiji when he had to kill his friend during the Ohara Buster Call. So that's another connection between those 2 events. And I definitely agree, right? Aokiji didn't want to kill Saul, but he ended up freezing him and Saul ended up living. I feel like Sentomaru, one way or another, might make it out of this A-okay. Maybe he's scarred, maybe he is burned after this, but I can't imagine Kizaru eliminating Vegapunk and Sentomaru based on the history they might have. Next comment says, Oda is doing his job and made everyone forget about Caribou. To me, Caribou is kind of like the Blackbeard Pirates, where every chapter you're wondering if they're going to show up, but they don't. So it's like, okay, do we keep on talking about Caribou and Blackbeard, or do we just let them do their thing and then wait till they come back? That's a hard one. It's kind of like Gecko Moria and Perona on Hachinosu. They're there. Perona and Gecko Moria, they were on Hachinosu when Kobe and Garp were there, but they never showed up. So it really makes me wonder if Caribou or the Blackbeard Pirates will show up, or if they'll be explained at a later date. But also, I talked about the Blackbeard Pirates maybe picking up the researcher ship, but maybe the Blackbeard Pirates came over just to pick up Caribou. Caribou, with his swamp devil fruit, can store limitless items in his stomach. So maybe he kidnapped a couple of Vegapunk brains, maybe he kidnapped some Vegapunk technology. The sky is the limit when it comes to this man's potential. And now, on to the next comment. It says, I've been waiting to see Captain Kuro return for a while. Now, we just need Don, Krieg, and Gin. My man. My man. Yep. I 100% agree. And here's the thing. You know, we could say that Oda forgot about Captain Kuro. He forgot about Don, Krieg, and Gin. But hear me out. The One Piece live action is releasing soon. And Captain Kuro got requested by a reader. Oda is going to have to remember these guys eventually. I feel like their time is coming. Gin did say that he would see the Straw Hat Pirates on the Grand Line eventually. So maybe, just maybe, the strong person that Luffy sensed is none other than Don, Krieg, and his diamond fist. And now the last comment says, it's a stretch that Big News Morgans would save them, but if he does, it's because he wants to know more about Luffy's devil fruit. Otherwise, they hear that he's going to Elbaf, and Vivi, trusting Luffy on his word that he will make it there, tells Big News Morgans to head towards Elbaf to meet Luffy there, and they don't get involved or noticed in the conflict. I think this is a perfect example of what Big News Morgans can do. Vivi, Morgans, Wapol, they're not big fighters. So yeah, if they make it here to Egghead Island, they're not really gonna change too much. And also, they can't really carry the 1,000 Sunny, so there's also that. So, the best thing Big News Morgans could do is meet them halfway or meet them at Elbaf. And I think that is a beautiful thing, because Vivi eventually has to regroup with the Straw Hats and tell them about what happened at Marie Joie. There are just so many possibilities with One Piece, and that's why I'm not like a huge person when it comes to sticking a stake in something and saying it's gonna happen, and I just like talking about all the ideas of what could possibly happen with you guys, and I love hearing all of your guys' theories. But with that being said, thank you so much for watching up to this point. Please consider liking, commenting, and subbing down below if you haven't already. And I will catch you guys when the next big chapter releases. There is a break week after this, so we got like 1.5, 2 week break. So yeah, keep that in mind. There is no chapter for quite some time. Oda did apologize for taking so many breaks, and he said that after this, we should go back to the 3-week schedule. If I recall correctly, he said that these breaks were mainly because of all of the One Piece events going on around the world, like Gear 5th, like the presentation, like One Piece's anniversary, and also the One Piece live action releasing at the end of this month. And it even goes as far back to him having his eye surgery. So Oda is just really, really busy. So I can't really blame him for taking this many breaks. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about the chapter down below. Thank you so much to the channel members and Patreon members here on the side. You guys are the freaking best. And I'll catch you guys later. Signing out.